guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit about my writing process. I am a writer. I've been writing since I was a kid. I remember my first story that I wrote was a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, which made no sense, but I wrote it and I liked the process. So, I've been writing at maybe 12, 13 years old, something like that. So it's always been like a real passion of mine. And I've written so many things over the years. I do have a master's in creative writing. I did that in Seattle at the University of Washington. I did write a little book. Actually, let me show you the little book. So I was going to show you the little book, but before that, let's get some tea going, because the tea helps with the creative juices and the writing process, and I always like to have a little cup of tea or a little pot of tea next to me. So let's get that going. Is done, so it's time to try it. Let's see now. Careful, it's hot. Ooh, oh yeah, I love a good hot pot of tea in the morning. Oh, I love it. It's just so, it just feels good to have like this warm tea, It's so good. Okay guys, so like I mentioned before, I am a writer and I did write a book for my thesis. Now, this story has gone through so many edits and changes. I had been writing this story, I want to say for 5-6 years before I even got into my master's program. And it's so different. It turned out so different than what it started as, so many different things. Maybe the names of the characters might have changed a little bit, and even their story, the ending, or not the ending, but like the cliffhanger, I would say. So this is my little book right here, The Secrets We Tell. It's available on Kindle and Apple Books. And this, I wanted it, I got it on Amazon as an author copy. And just because like it's like a mom, you know, I wanted to hold my baby, you know, and have it with me there. So it's not available on paperback, but if you know, I mean, if one of you wants a paperback, I can definitely open up that option again in Amazon publishing. So, you know, if you want to grab a physical copy, I know a lot of people prefer the physical, but I think it just gets to more people as an electronic version. You know, everybody's so busy these days, you don't have time to kind of just sit and read a book. You know, everything is on the phone, on the palm of our hand, so people could prefer that. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested, leave a comment down below and I can definitely go ahead and open up the paperback option. But yes, so I did write it. It is a science fiction novel, and you know, it deals a bit with family dynamics. It's a little bit of a dash of romance. There are a lot of action, a lot of cursing, of course, but mostly it deals with trauma, you know, and that's a really big theme in this book. It's a lot of trauma, you know, related to, for example, my main character, she is a soldier. Trauma related to that, trauma relating to family history, family relationships, things that have happened over the years, you know, and just how to deal with that, how to cope with that. Can we even cope with trauma that's so big, so, you know, it just takes the kind of trauma, that takes over our lives completely. Is it even worth fighting and trying to, you know, trying to overcome it? So that's actually, you know, it's a dark theme, but it's there, and it is also hopeful. You know, I try not to sugarcoat anything. It's not like a story where it's so dark and then at the end, oh, everything is fine. No, but I do want to leave with at least a little glimmer of hope that things can be better on the other side if you just kind of push through the muck, you know. And you know, it's a lot of hard work. But anyways, this is my baby, and it is, like I said, it did leave off on a cliffhanger, so it does have a second part. When will that second part be available, you ask? Good question. I don't know. The only thing that I have in my mind of the second part is a very specific scene where I have my main character rushing towards, like, it's like in the middle of a huge like gunfight or battle. You know, I have to, you know, get those details, but she's rushing towards someone that she loves. Well, I'll just say her sister. She's rushing towards her sister, but I'm not sure because it's very complicated. So read it, you know. But I'm not sure if it's like to save her, to stop her from doing something, to kill her, you know. Like I said, these family dynamics are traumatic, but hopefully she makes the right choice, and hopefully her sister makes the right choice, in everything. But anyways, yes, today I wanted to kind of just give you a little bit of a rundown on my writing process, you know, kind of like what I like to do first, you know, how I do the whole thing from beginning to end, you know, how I write down or jot down any ideas that I might have for a story, you know, and they come at any time, really. I mean, it's not something that I can say, oh yeah, you know, when I do this, it comes. No, they can come at any time. I will say this though, the best and only really preparation for being a good writer is being a great reader. Yes, I said it. Read a book. That's right. Read many. I have so many books. I will show you later, but I have so many books here. And you know, for any career, for any job, you have to prepare, you have to do your research, you have to do all kinds of things. You want to be a writer, you have to be a reader. That is it. You have to read constantly. You know, if I'm not writing, I'm reading. If I'm stuck, you know, as it happened many times when I was writing this, I got stuck on scenes, on dialogue. I was like, oh, I put it down, and I would just reread one of my favorite books or read, you know, buy a new one. And all of a sudden I would be reading and the idea would snap into my head. I could use this, you know. So they're great sources of inspiration great sources of research. You know, if you're writing a science fiction novel, read science fiction books. If you're writing I don't know, romance, you read romance novels. If you're writing about contemporary or historical fiction, you know, read those kinds of books. So I mean, the best thing to be a good writer is to be a great reader. My big advice. But then again, I'm biased. I've always loved books. But still, that's the best advice anybody can give you. If somebody is a writer and they tell you, oh, I don't read much, that's a lie. They have to read or they're not real writers. That's right. I said it. You're not a real writer if you don't read. Anyways, going off of that tangent, let's get the video started. I'm going to show you some things that I do that I like to do, and we'll see where we go from there. like I mentioned before, if you're not writing, you're reading, and I'm actually reading The Palace Papers by Tina Brown. I am a little bit of a British royal buff, so I'm reading that. So even in books about nonfiction, you can read the essay, or you can have a little bit of inspiration come. You know, you read something, a situation, you say, oh, how can I apply this to my book? So it's always these little things that where you're least expecting it as you're reading another book, even if it's a completely different genre from what you're writing, can definitely help you know, you as a writer. Now I will say, for my lovely poet friends out there, I just don't. And by that I mean I don't do poetry. I've never written a poem. I've read many poems, but you know, the very classic poems and poets, you know, there's some out there that are just very I would say intense, because, you know, and they have this hybrid form where it's not just, you know, the regular I guess prose that we're used to reading in a classic poem, but I just can't. I really can't. I like long fiction. I like long prose. I like a story, you know, and I'm sure some poems are great, and I have a few favorites, you know, actually, but I just really don't dabble too much in poetry, even though I have great friends who are wonderful poets. They really are, but I kind of dabble a little bit more in the long word. That's not a term, long word. But you know what? If it's not a term, I will coin it now. Long word, meaning just long stories, you know. So yeah. So that was just a little tidbit. So what I like to do when I start writing is kind of just write on my like a notebook, just like a regular notebook, you know, right here, just like a regular notebook. And I like to jot down my ideas, what I maybe want to write for the storyline. And then I like to write, I love dialogue. That's great, you know, and I love scenes that have a lot of like nice dialogue. Which is why I really like Quentin Tarantino movies, just have so much dialogue. And some people are like, oh my God, there's so much dialogue here and it makes no sense and this and that. I love it. You know, people just want to get to the bloody parts of a Tarantino movie, but I actually really like the beginning, which is just a lot of talking, you know, and it's interesting. You know, it's just great. So I really like a lot of dialogue, but I also like, if anyone has read the I don't have it here, but the Hunger Games trilogy, it is a fantastic trilogy. I mean, the language, the prose in there is very sparse, and I like that. It's to the point, but it gets you to the point in a way where just with a few words it conveys so much information, and I really would like to write that way, you know. I like to give you a tidbit, and I want you to for that tidbit to be good enough, for example, for you to get the whole gist of what's happening, of what people are doing or what's going on. So I really like that way of writing, and that's kind of how I write. Especially how I wrote my science fiction novel, just in that way. Now.